Hi, everyone. This is Alan McKay. Welcome to episode 146. I'm speaking with Kathleen Ruffalo from Framestore. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
So, welcome to a brand new episode. I'm speaking with Kathleen Ruffalo, who's a crew manager at Framestore. She handles the majority of LA as well as Chicago. And it was really great speaking to her about Framestore, as well as just a lot of insights she's had over her career, especially managing every single kind of artist that you can imagine. And there's a lot of really great advice in here. So, although I just published this episode, we did this a while ago, and I've already been quoting her a few times because, again, she managed to drop such really great knowledge throughout all of this. Before we get into the episode, I just want to quickly mention that I have a lot of free training. I put out a big free crash course right now that's available until June 24. So if you want to get this episode, go to alanmckay.com/plasma and you can sign up there. It's not too late. You can grab 8 hours spanned over 7 videos of free training. We get into a lot of stuff. I showed it all on the Red Epic Weapon, did a LiDAR scan of the entire environment, tracked it all, built it all, and we go through all of the training together. So this should be a lot of fun. Just go to alanmckay.com/plasma. You can sign up there for free. And if it's past this date, you can still sign up, and I'm going to be putting out some other goodies associated with that as well. So that being said, I'm really excited to jump into this episode. So let's dive in. Again, thank you for taking the time to chat. And Kathleen, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Kathleen Ruffalo. I am the crew manager for Framestore integrated advertising for both Los Angeles and Chicago.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I was just curious, did you always want to work in film and TV, or was it something you kind of fell into along the way?
I did have a focus in art initially. So I studied photography in high school and went to art school for college, and within college kind of discovered the amazing world of video and film and got more enticed into that. I always loved watching films and was into cinema and television. But I was more interested in the live action side initially. And it wasn't until I moved out to LA and after working for a while that I discovered visual effects. I was actually probably one of those people when I was a student that didn't like CGI and was against that and how that made films not what they used to be. But as you really learn about it and the more exposure you have to it, I realized how incredible it was and how much it can add to a story. And there's so much that's in films that you don't even realize is CG or like compositing tricks that it really changed my appreciation for it. So I always had an interest, always loved art. So I did kind of point myself in a direction to end up into the entertainment industry in one form or another. And then kind of landing in visual effects was a bit more happenstance, if you will.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, visual effects is one of those things that can get a bit of a bad rap, and it really comes down to, was it good visual effects or bad visual effects? So, that could be the budget, it could be the client, it could be, a dozen things. But it's definitely a place that opens a lot of doors to what you can do in terms of freedom now to tell stories and do all the things that, 20 years ago we couldn't make in film. So, yeah, it's really amazing. Cool. And I was just curious, I mean, again, just kind of leading into that, I mean, when did you get your first big break? Did you go directly into Framestore, or did you kind of segue a little bit?
So I went to college in Chicago. I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is definitely more of a conceptual art school. So not a very traditional film school where they kind of teach you how to behave on set and what it's like to have kind of on-set experience. And I, on a whim, moved to Los Angeles without having a job, without having a place to live, only having one friend that I knew out there whose couch I slept on for maybe like 2 weeks. And just did it because it was what I wanted to do. And I knew there was no way I was going to break into that industry if I didn't just take this leap of faith and go for it. I moved at a time when there was a recession. I believe the writer's strike had just happened.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty terrible. I think the first 8 months I lived in LA, I couldn't find a job to save my life. I was doing like nannying stuff and just side jobs to kind of make ends meet at the end of the day. And then it was all kind of through knowing people that I got my first job working on reality TV shows primarily. So I was like a PA and just started out as a PA. Did that for a while, worked a few like short stints, and then, you just meet people, you do your job well, you make sure to be respectful to everyone on the crew, and then you get called in for the next job and then the next one, and it kind of progressed from there. So I did that for probably about 4 years. And then I was on like lots of different reality TV shows and scripted TV shows, always kind of in that PA role, primarily in the office. So kind of dealing with paperwork and that kind of administrative stuff. Making sides, all those fun tasks. And then I landed on the show House for the very final season. And through that, I met some people on that show. When that ended, the AD was actually dating the woman that was the project manager for getting like the building set up for Framestore in LA. And he turned me on to the fact that they had a position for an office manager. I did my research about the company, saw what an amazing opportunity it was to get in at the ground floor of such an incredible company that I was like, yes, yeah. I will apply for that job. So I initially interviewed for the office manager role. They did not offer me that position. They went with another candidate, but they did offer me the role of the receptionist / runner production assistant, which was a bit of a step backwards at that time in my career because I was starting to get like coordinator offers on more like reality TV show work. But I thought about it for a little bit and realized what a great opportunity Framestore could be, and that it would allow me the opportunity to show everyone that was already at the company what I'm capable of. And I just went with it. It was a little less money, but it was like, I don't care. This is amazing. So I was actually one of the first people they hired in the LA office. And as I said, I started out kind of in this general assistant role. When we initially opened, there was only about 5 people in the building. So it was very bare bones. I kind of helped set up the whole office and kind of worked my way up over the last 6 years almost into the position that I have now. So I kind of went from being receptionist to being the office manager because the woman they did hire ended up leaving. So filled that role for a bit, then kind of went into the production department because I initially thought I was interested in being a producer. So I was doing like PA coordinator tasks, quickly realized that the part that I loved so much about the work was actually working with the artists. The position's kind of complex, to say the least, and felt that producing wasn't actually where my passions lied. I enjoyed kind of dealing with the artists more so than the clients. So kind of when I found out about that role and they were looking to bring someone on in LA to do that, I was like, don't hire anybody, just let me do it. And they gave me the opportunity, and kind of the rest is history, I suppose. So I've been in that position for about 4 years now, 3.5 years. And have, as we've expanded, I've helped look after the LA office from the beginning. And then now as we're opening up offices in Chicago, I've been helping them with a lot of their hires and recruitment and scheduling. And it's been amazing. Framestore has been such a great opportunity for me. I have no regrets.
No, that's really great. And yeah, I mean, just to kind of go backwards for a second, but moving to LA on a whim, I mean, that's going to be pretty scary to decide to kind of pick up and leave. But at the same time, it makes sense to go where the work is. What was it like? I mean, did you have much of a plan other than showing up, or how did it kind of come together?
To be totally honest, I don't think I had much of a plan. I did my best to apply for positions, from home and kind of try to get my name out there, but it became quite apparent as soon as I was actually in Los Angeles that you actually did need to know somebody. I always kind of loathed that phrase of it's not what you know, it's who you know. But the more you actually kind of get involved in any industry, you realize how very true it is. So networking is incredibly essential to kind of getting into your next role. So I found that a lot of places weren't paying attention to my resume because I had no real relevant experience, if you will, because I'd been working in Chicago in like small scale projects. So it's like big studios and like the big shows that I was applying to, it was kind of like, I don't think they ever even looked at it, or I don't know if they did. I never heard anything back from most places. So it just kind of got to the point where it's like, I can't wait for there to be a job offer. I just have to go do it and then pound the pavement and meet people that are there. And that was pretty much what I did. I had a few connections and went on like general meetings just to kind of get insight from people that were already in the industry and get their kind of story and figure out how they broke in. And just so happened I made friends with people that were already working on a lot of reality TV shows. So that kind of helped. They vouched for me, said, yeah, give her a chance. And, the PA position is the most entry-level position that you can have on any kind of project, TV show, film. So it was still hard to get, though. I mean, at the time, because that would have been like 2009, 2010. So it was a struggle that I don't think I really anticipated. So I was scraping by. I was genuinely scraping by, but I was just excited to be there and did everything I could just to keep making connections and just kept going for it because it was never an option to move home for me. I was like, no, I can't. I can't give up on this. So you just make it work. And, eventually it all kind of falls into place if you keep going for it. It's amazing the opportunities that are there that you don't even realize could be there. Like I would never have thought I'd end up in this position when I initially moved, back then, or when I was in college. I didn't even really know there was such a job as a crew manager for a visual effects company. So you never know where the path will take you, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's so great too. I mean, the fact that you're like, okay, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And, going back isn't an option. It's kind of like, I think the term is burning all the ships and storming the beachfront. It's no returning. Right. Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned, getting in there, at least finding a way in, I think, is the critical part. It doesn't really matter about how you get in, because from there you can prove that you can do the work. You can prove what talent you have. And otherwise, you're always going to be kind of knocking on doors trying to get into that bubble. And LA, like it or not, can always be a little bit cliquey at times. And so it is important just to kind of land on your feet and then from there kind of start to work your way through. So I think that's really cool. And it's funny because I do know some people who have had luck just going to random bars, let's say in Santa Monica, to meet all the right people that you end up getting a job at Method or somewhere like that. Whereas I guess in Culver City, you've got like Rush Street and not that many other places that you can really go to. But
Father's office.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. So yeah, I guess there's some better ones these days. But yeah, yeah, no, that's so cool though. I think it's really great that you're able to kind of go out there with a plan, and especially at that time, it being a bit rougher than usual. Because I remember around that time, I had an office out on Main Street in Santa Monica, and I was just kind of like looking at all the work going to Vancouver. It's just like, all right, like this might be a good time to be, bringing on people and having a lot of overhead when you don't know what jobs are actually going to be around. And I think it was like about 2 years before things started to really pick back up again in that area. Yeah, that's really cool. And again, I'd love to chat a little bit about a lot of the insights that I think you can give to those who, as I was saying before, like either are just breaking into the industry, or those who are in the industry but just kind of want to get a different perspective of managing teams, and also, of course, like when they apply for work, like what the typical, I guess, process would be. And I was kind of curious for you, like how do you describe a typical day, like in terms of your job and what you do?
Sure. Well, my typical day involves a lot of emails, a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails every day, and I do my best, as I think all of our recruitment team does, to kind of follow up with people because we get a lot of just unsolicited emails from people interested in hearing about opportunities at Framestore. So you do your best to kind of make sure you follow up with people and give them updates on the status of things. So in my role, I'm doing recruitment as well as scheduling, as well as working with our team that's already in place with career development. So it's quite a big range of tasks that I'm kind of dealing with, and every day is a little bit different, which is probably why I love my job so much. But deal with a lot of emails, kind of go through that, and then you're constantly checking in with production on the status of projects, making sure that they have the teams that they need, that the team that they have is currently working accurately, and that we've got everything represented properly in our schedule. As new work is coming in, we're kind of preparing for what we might need if that were to award. So it's a lot of communicating, a lot of meetings. And then I'm always trying to do a bit of passive recruitment. So we might not always have specific roles advertised on our website or specific roles that are open in our particular offices, but we're always looking at new freelance talent. And so part of what I try to do is make sure I am going through our database to see any new applications that have come through, and keep an eye on any new and upcoming artists that we might want to try to work with. So setting up meetings to have just general chats with people to get a sense of their interests and their availability. And then I'm also dealing with some resourcing as well. So as far as in the facility, making sure that we have the seats available and that everyone has the systems that they need, and kind of coordinating between departments to make sure all of that is covered. And then we also do like reviews. I mean, it's going to vary from day to day, but part of it is also kind of connecting with the team, as I said, to get an idea of how their work has been going, how they like the project that they're on, and like where they see themselves going. So we do annual reviews for all of our employees at Framestore. So kind of getting involved in those as well. And then I'm also helping with our internship program, as well as I do all the hiring for our runners. So there's always something that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's pretty full on.
And then between LA and Chicago as well. So that's really a big part of it. So interns are something that we do 3 times a year. So that's not my daily task, but there'll be surges of time where I'm kind of going through that. We try to do our best to connect with different schools, and that's kind of one of my dream things I can do on a daily basis, is make stronger connections with some of the area schools and do presentations, or just invite the students to go on a tour of our facility. We've been able to do that with a few different schools, and trying to grow that network a bit further so that we have a stronger presence and just can bring in the next generation of talent. Yeah, that's kind of the daily run of my job.
Wow.
It's a lot of emails, though.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I was just curious too, like with Chicago, how are things going over there? I mean, is it more commercial based, or is there a lot of feature films coming through as well?
Yeah, so I mean, just to give you the breadth of work that Framestore does, I mean, we're kind of across every area, and it's just growing further. So we do have offices around the world. So we're London, Montreal, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago currently. And we do feature films, commercial work. We do VR and AR-based projects. We're doing installations, theme park rides, TV episodics. So it's kind of the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And in Chicago in particular, our primary focus for that team, as it is the smallest still, is kind of more of the traditional integrated advertising work. So your traditional commercials or any kind of short form projects. There's always there's also like concert visuals and things like that come up. And we've been working on a few of those types of projects as well. We work on a lot of very NDA'd projects as well, which is getting to be an exciting part of how you structure the actual facility that people are working in. Closing off doors and kind of keeping people separated between different projects. And we're starting to do a lot more looking into candidates that have experience with real-time renders, so like games backgrounds, which games is kind of like the only thing that Framestore isn't doing at the moment, but that might change. But still, those kind of same skill sets are something that we're always intrigued by. So it's a huge range. And Chicago right now is about 20 people on staff across the entire office. So definitely the smallest. That's compared to about 97 in LA and about 88 in New York. So, and then there's like 500 in Montreal and probably close to 700 or 800 in London between both film and commercial or integrated advertising.
Yeah.
So the Chicago office is still growing, and that's kind of one of the exciting things about it. It's kind of being seeing that kind of progression and just how it's evolving. It's only been open for about a year now, so it's still very early days, but we do have color in our Chicago office, and I think that's something that we'll continue to put a lot of focus on for that particular market in the Midwest. So we do have base light for color in LA, Chicago, and London. So Chicago's got one suite now, and I think we'll probably expand to two before too long. But a lot of finishing work comes through there as well, just like more traditional finishing work, so purely flame jobs, things of that nature. But it's a small, really amazingly connected team. We've done really well with bringing people over from our various other offices to help set it up, as well as pulling some really talented people from the Chicago area, which has been a really nice mix to kind of have that Framestore history as well as the people that have the Midwest connection and the Chicago market connection. So it seems to be going quite well. So still lots to be seen from that studio, that's for sure.
Cool. No, that's really great. And I was curious too, like, let's say that a project got greenlit internally, and what would then happen in terms of hiring and staffing? Like, typically, would you wait to hear from the supervisors who kind of figure out what their needs are, or like how would it all kind of come together?
Sure. So the process is if a project comes in and we're bidding it, we usually try to get a rough idea of what the schedule and the needs would be from the team. And we will always try to utilize our staff team first and also look at the artists that we might have available in the various studios. So in particular in the US, between LA, Chicago, and New York, we are kind of working as one single team, if you will. So if a project comes in and say we know that there's 3 animators in New York that might be available, we would try to look to see if we can either send the animation work over there or see if they might be able to come over to the LA office to work with the rest of the team. So first priority is making sure we utilize the talent that's already within the building. So we look at schedules from that perspective, communicating with the supervisors and the leads and with the producer to kind of determine who the right people are for the project. I have pretty good insight into most of the skill sets of our team, so usually I can put together a rough idea or a suggested list of crew for them to consider, and then they can give me feedback if they're thinking someone else might be more suited to it or if they had someone else in mind. Then from there, if it looks like we don't have enough staff to cover the role, that's when we start to go to our freelance pool. So we have a pretty amazing network of freelancers already. It took a while for us to build up to this, but since we've kind of been pretty established in our facilities in LA and New York specifically, we kind of have our go-to people that we connect with first. If we find that people aren't available, then we kind of start to go through the next level of people that maybe we've interviewed, we've never had a chance to work with, that we want to try to see if they can fit in with the team. And then if we find that all of those resources are unavailable, that's when we kind of start to put a push out to just general calls for interest and availability. And we start to review new candidates from there. I'd say in Chicago, that's where we struggle the most with in freelance artists, because the market is so much smaller and the pool of talent is so much smaller comparatively to New York and LA. LA is kind of the luckiest because you've got such a giant pool of incredibly talented people that are already based there from the years that visual effects has kind of been in that city. New York's pretty well covered as well, but Chicago still seems to be a little bit different. And to be completely frank, some of the level of work that's coming out of Chicago isn't quite at the level that Framestore expects and kind of strives for. So we've had to push and train a lot of people and kind of help them get to that next level and the freelance talent that we've brought in. But there are some really great people, but they're usually the ones that get booked the fastest. So it's always kind of that battle that you're dealing with. But part of our goal for Chicago in particular is to kind of do a lot more outreach and connect with the schools and help them give their students a bit more guidance on how to develop and what they should be aiming to do as far as getting their reels and kind of what kind of work they should be focusing on. And a lot of it is soft skills too, that I think is easily taken for granted in visual effects because it's so technical and so artistic. So you're always worried about, does it look right? Do I know how to use this program? Do I understand this scripting language? But a lot of it is having a good attitude and like, knowing how to collaborate, because it is a very collaborative industry. I tell people all the time that you're never really going to be sitting alone on a computer just working by yourself. If you join Framestore, it is always going to be a collaboration. We're always working together. We're always going to be getting feedback from people. So that kind of stuff that we're looking for in our talent as well, beyond just the work that they're producing. But that was a bit of a tangent from your original question.
I honestly, I'd love to segue to that for a moment. So, I mean, do you want to elaborate a little bit about hard skills and soft skills?
Sure. I mean, for Framestore in particular, we're primarily doing very photorealistic visual effects work. We do have a design studio as well, where we're doing a bit more motion design type work. We can get in projects that are a bit more stylized, but I'd say majority of what comes through our door is going to be that very photorealistic visual effects content, high-end visual effects. So we are always looking for candidates that have a base understanding in CG of Maya. That's our primary software. So it's very helpful for people that come into the building that they know how to work the program and can make something that looks good. We're also using Houdini a lot as well, particularly for effect simulations, but starting to use it for lighting as well. We're doing a lot of our grooming in Houdini because I think it's an amazing program, and it's one that takes a little bit longer, it seems, for people to get their head around. This is obviously coming from someone that doesn't know how to use it at all. But I do know that it's a bit more challenging. But I think once you really dig into it, it's got so much capabilities. So we're using those types of programs. We're using Nuke and Flame for compositing. Flame is more for finishing. Don't really expect young students to have much experience with Flame, although I know that they are working towards making it a bit more accessible. There's a student version of Flame now available. So that's pretty amazing. But so Nuke primarily, and then our design team is going to be using Cinema 4D and After Effects. We're also using programs like Mari, really interested in people that have touched in Substance Designer and Substance Painter, as we're doing a lot more real-time based work. We also use ZBrush a lot. For tracking, we use 3D Equalizer. So if people come in with those hard skills, if you will, like knowing how to use these programs and being able to represent, photorealistic CG elements, or, good compositing and showing a strong foundation of rotoing and keying and paint work, cleanup type stuff, and just general compositing of CG live action integration. Those things are obviously what we're looking for on a very base level. But the thing that makes our team amazing and what will help us continue to grow and be relevant for hopefully another 30 years to come, if not longer, is how we emphasize those soft skills. So it's finding people that know how to work well within a team, that are able to take feedback and run with it and not take it personally. I think that's one of the harder things for people just getting started to get used to, because it isn't an attack on you. It's just like notes on your work, So yeah, you probably put all of your effort and your heart and soul into something for the last few days, and then suddenly, you're getting feedback from a creative director or the director or the agency that's like, no, I don't like that. Let's go in a new direction. And you have to start all over, which can be incredibly disheartening and hard to not want to go back and be like, that's a bad idea. What you're doing is wrong. I hate where you're taking this project. But it's a part of the job, and it's a part of this industry. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a client service industry. Exactly. So we are pleasing someone else. So being able to kind of roll with those punches and, take that feedback and just use it as just what you need to do to get your piece or your shot to the next level. That's something that I think is harder to train into yourself. It's just kind of something you have to get accustomed to and prepare yourself for when you enter into this industry. And then it's communication. It's being able to clearly talk to both your lead and your producer, and as well as with your other, team members about where you're at with your shots, making sure people kind of know the status of things and being able to give realistic timelines. I think one of the worst things people can do is say, yeah, I can get that done in a day, and then you actually need 2 days. So those kinds of things where you kind of, and that comes with experience. I think, it's hard for someone coming from school to jump into a professional large scale production setting to gauge that right away. But to be honest, I think it's better for you to say, like, I'm not sure if this is what I'm capable of, and I don't know if I can get it done in a day. I might need 2 days to do it. But if you kind of oversell what you might be able to do, it's only going to come back harder on you in the end, because your producer will be expecting it and your lead will be expecting it, and then it's not ready, and then it delays everything else. So it is very much kind of being able to realize that you're on a team and communicating with that team and working well with that team, both in just like giving ideas and hearing feedback, as well as kind of helping move along the schedule, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think that's really great. And you're right about that. I think that artists need to always kind of learn to manage themselves better. And it's one of those things, I think, that most people don't do it intentionally, but they do think that, hey, this will only take an hour, because it sounds really straightforward. But I think the rule of thumb, for me at least, managing any project is that if it's 3D, things are going to go wrong. Like nothing ever goes smoothly. So I think that, the earlier you start to kind of actually pay attention to, hey, I said this will take 3 hours, how long did it actually take? The more after a while you can kind of start to catch yourself and realize, hey, I got to add some more buffer in. And you might realize when you're working on a project that you tell a producer it's going to take half a day, they'll put down a day. And, it's everyone's adding a little bit of margin time, because things happen, things go wrong. And, I think that the more experience you get, the better you get with managing your time and understanding, like, like this may not work out as quickly as I imagine, or whatever it might be. But it's definitely an important thing to learn, because the quicker you do that, the quicker people will trust in what you say and know that, okay, Alan or whoever said it's going to take half a day, it's probably going to take half a day, rather than, okay, if he says half a day, that means it's probably going to be a day, So I think it's really important. And as you talked about too, I mean, I think it's also really critical to learn that, you take ownership over your own work, but at the end of the day, you are being hired to fulfill a role in a bigger picture. And I think it's kind of natural that everyone gets so invested in their work that when they do get those changes, that it's easy to kind of come back and be like, no, this is perfect. Your idea is stupid, but you're being brought on to fulfill their vision. And I heard something when I was like 18 years old. The guy who sat next to me, Scott Tansley, he was always saying, as long as they have the money, I have the time. And I always thought that was like a really good attitude to have, because ultimately it means like, look, I'm getting paid to do a job. It isn't my vision. I'm not the client. So it's more about, I'm being brought on, I'm here, I'm getting paid. So, as many revisions they want to give, I'm happy to give those, because, it's my job. That's what I'm here for. So I think that the more people embrace that attitude, the more happy they are just to kind of go and fulfill the vision of the client, the director, the supervisor, whoever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. And I was curious too, like when it comes to hiring, I mean, typically are you pulling from your own database, or are you doing a lot of outreach as well and trying to find new artists all the time, or just more focusing on the ones who are submitting their work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. Framestore is very fortunate that we've got such a amazing reputation, and we've been around for a while. So we do get a lot of candidates that apply directly through our website, which I would say is like the best route of going to get yourself noticed by Framestore in particular. And I think that goes for a lot of the larger companies. I think we all kind of pull from people that actually apply through our site. So I always encourage people to visit the careers section of our website to update their information. And as they make new iterations of their reel, make sure that that's constantly updated, because we're looking at that all the time. I am constantly going through our database, which is basically pulled from people that apply through our online website. Then I'd say, we do some outreach as well. I mean, as I kind of mentioned, I'm often, and our crew managers and our other sites and recruiters in London and Montreal are often going to various events to kind of meet new talent, be that internship fairs or places like SIGGRAPH or any kind of job fairs, just to meet more people and constantly networking. We do look at other outside websites. Oftentimes our supervisors might even be searching around on ArtStation or Behance, and then they'll send someone my way and say, did you see this guy? You should reach out to them. Cool. That kind of thing. And, sometimes they'll send me a reel that they found on Vimeo. So it's a little bit of that. LinkedIn is obviously a really great networking kind of site. Framestore is pretty active on that. All of the social media sites. So we post a lot of our job positions on LinkedIn. I believe they go through our Facebook and our Twitter, and those kinds of things are announced as well. So people that kind of post things on LinkedIn is somewhat effective. I think it's more effective for replying to us to see that oh, I see Framestore has this new job that they have open. I'm going to follow the instructions on that post and go to that. Less so like us seeing reels on LinkedIn. But I will say that when people post a new reel on LinkedIn and people see it, that does kind of make you take notice, and you look at it and you're like, okay, especially if they might be staff somewhere else, because usually when someone posts their reel on LinkedIn, if they're staff, that means they might be interested in new opportunities. That's kind of a cue to recruiters. So when that happens, we kind of take notice and check in and see what they have going, if it's, someone that you think would be a good fit for a role that you might have. So it is definitely a bit of both, but I'd say, a good 90% of it is people coming to us and going through our website and applying that way that we kind of find our talent.
That's really cool. And I was curious, do you keep all the older reels in file as well, or just always keep the most up to date? Great. So you can see the progress over time.
Well, I guess maybe I should say that again. So it depends. If our database is pretty much controlled by what the candidate puts in, we can always update it ourselves if we find it, but there is we can keep a comment log of say old links to reels, but often I find that people tend to take down their reels, or as long as they have a Vimeo page that has multiple reels and they kind of keep it active, we can keep track of it, and it's really nice to see. And I kind of love when I go to someone's Vimeo page and see they've got a reel from 2015, 2017, 2018, so that you can kind of see the progression that they've gone through without having to watch, a 25-minute long reel to kind of get the full breadth of their work. But yeah, our database is kind of more controlled by the individual. It basically generates a profile for them to update, so they can update a new resume at any time if they've got new experience. And then if they do that, their old one does just go away, which, is fine at the end of the day. Usually that all have most of the same information. But
Right. And I'm just kind of curious too, if people are applying on your website, is there any advice you would give to help them stand out?
Sure. The thing with the website and applying to positions at Framestore is we have a lot of offices. So I would encourage people to be mindful of where they actually want to work. And I would encourage applicants to really consider work sponsorship opportunities. So if you're a foreign-based candidate, it's going to be a bit more difficult for us to get you a position in the U.S. Or say you're a U.S. candidate and you're interested in working in the U.K. It is a bit harder. Not to say that it's impossible, and we have sponsored lots of visas, but it is something that you should be mindful of and really think if you have kind of met the qualifications that would be required to be eligible for said sponsorship, which usually means you've got a bit more experience. Maybe you've won some awards or had publications, that kind of thing. And I'd say one thing that is a small pet peeve is when candidates apply to every position on the website. So I would discourage that kind of behavior, because that kind of, when I see that, when I look at a profile and I see they've applied to like 25 positions between all of our offices, you're like, well, does this person even know what they want?
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that if you're open to, say, working in either LA or New York, that you shouldn't apply to both roles, but don't apply for the runner position and then the senior compositor position, because those are two very different roles. So either you're not qualified for one of them, I imagine,
Not
overqualified
qualified for the
one.
runner.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a good point, because
Overqualified or underqualified, yeah.
if I get two people give me their business card and one says I'm an effects TD and the other one says I'm an effects TD, I'm also a designer and a wedding photographer or a webpage designer or whatever it might be. For me, it's always going to be like, okay, well, what are you? If you're all these things, it's basically saying I'll do anything. Whereas
Right.
the person who is laser focused with a message of like, they're taking ownership. They're saying, I do this, and there's a good marketing analogy that I like bringing up at a lot of marketers when they're talking about, like, you walk into a drugstore and you have a splitting headache and you have two identical drugs in front of you. One says cures all aches and pains and the other one says cures headaches. Naturally, even if they're identical, you're going to go for the one that says cures headaches because that's the thing that you need. So I think the more that people take ownership and say, I'm this one thing, it means, like, even saying I'm a 3D artist, it's going to be a lot easier to know how to categorize you, where to place you, what to do with your application if you're very specific, saying I specialize in lighting or whatever it might be. Even though
Absolutely.
you might have as many opportunities, it means that you're raising your hand for that one that they might need.
Yeah, and on our website, we do kind of have these general calls for CG artists, both for like internship level and for just freelance, so people can create a profile and express interest. But it's very important in that kind of cover letter section that you kind of highlight what areas you're most interested in. We do use generalists a lot in advertising, and that's kind of where I'd say it happens more often. And in feature films, we're going to be focusing in more on specialized artists, so people that are just texture artists. That's what they're going to want in feature film. Whereas in advertising, because the turnaround of our projects is so quick, we often do prefer to have people that can come in and do some modeling and texturing and look dev. That's going to be really appealing for us. And kind of the more things you can do within reason, there's obviously things that get specialized, but the more that you can do, the more likely we're able to keep you rolling on from one project to the next, or keep you on longer in a freelance role. So it's kind of the cover letter section. I think I hear a lot of things about how cover letters are obsolete and not necessary, but we do
Hell
look
no.
at them, and I think they are really helpful to kind of put your personality forward, and to kind of explain just a short one of like what your interests are, what your experience is very quickly. And obviously your resume is going to explain the details of the roles that you've held and the responsibilities that you've had. But it does kind of help to get us to be informed of like, okay, you're interested in lighting primarily and you're using Houdini, so that we can kind of put you in the right category, because we do have like internal categories that we kind of tag people to, so it's easier for us to find candidates that apply to those general CG openings at a later date. So other things that really stand out for us, we love people that have a mix of both like a computer science and artistic backgrounds. I think those are the very unique candidates that bring a lot to the table in the visual effects industry. So
having a bit more scripting and coding ability, you think is favorable?
Yeah. Because we love problem solvers. That's what we have to deal with all the time. There are always problems that we've never experienced before that come up, and people that can kind of think along those lines is super helpful. And any kind of Python or C++ or C# is going to come into handy in one way or another. So people that have that is really great. Obviously not a requirement, but it is something that will make you stand out a bit more if you say, like, I've done this, I've built tools to help me, expedite this process in Nuke or whatever, and automate some tools, that kind of thing. That's really going to make you stand out, because especially when you're dealing with the timelines that you have in advertising, anything we can do to kind of save time and money, because time is money, right? It will be incredibly beneficial to us, and we would obviously want to have someone like that on our team. So those kinds of things I think really do stand out. And again, we're getting more into that real-time work. So people with any experience with real-time renderers is getting more interesting. And as long as, like, anyone that expresses an active interest in the technology, people that are looking into these new programs and always kind of looking for the next thing that's going to be the next normal thing, that's kind of on the verge. That really show that they have a passion for visual effects is going to be very interesting to us. And that can be expressed either in your cover letter in a few short words, or it could be something that you list on your resume that you've been exploring these new programs, be it Substance Designer or Substance Painter, or something that I don't even know about yet. That kind of thing is really interesting to us as well. And when it comes to Reels, I mean, I am an advocate for a minute, especially for people with less experience. I don't need to see every work in progress that you've ever made. I just want to see your very best work, and I want to see your best work first. I think something I come across often is I sit in at job fairs or at internship fairs, and a student shows their reel, and like the work that's the most exciting is at the very end. And I'm like, you've got to change the order, because if you weren't sitting in front of me, I wouldn't have gone that far into your reel. I would have just stopped after 30 seconds and said, you know what, this isn't right. But then you had this great piece at the very end. So it's very much about starting with your strongest piece and keeping it short. I know that gets harder the more experience people have, but you should bear in mind that recruiters are looking at lots of reels all day long. So you'll be lucky if they give 2 minutes to every reel, because at a certain point you get what you need to get from what someone's capable of within a minute. I think it's very possible to do that. So being very deliberate in your edits of your reel, I think, is good advice for people.
I think it's so critical. Like, let's just make this official, because I feel like there's like this ongoing really bit of bad advice that people keep giving, that is like, always end on your best work. And I always say, like, how are people going to see your best work if they don't get to the end? Because I feel like a lot of people aren't really aware that you typically are going to have a lot of reels to go through. And I mean, whenever I'm doing a job where I've got to staff up a team of 20, 30 people, that's just it. I'm going to look through a couple hundred reels. Like, I'm looking for an excuse to move to the next one. And I think that people are so focused on the wrong things like music and all these other things that they're not aware that just one bad thing, one bad shot, one long title that goes for 20 seconds at the very beginning saying I'm a 3D person is enough to say next and move on. So your every single shot should be the same way that you're trying to keep them captivated till the next one and the next one. And, less is more always in that case.
Yeah. And music is, something you should think about. But honestly, I'd say most people, I'll speak for myself. I will say I do not listen to reels with the music on 98% of the time. I just have it off because it's too distracting. And especially if I've got to watch like 30 in a row, just like, no, just turn it off.
There's only so much dance music you can listen to before you want to go to a club. No, I think it's really critical too, because I think that having music is good for putting it on YouTube and Vimeo, more for everyone else to kind of click through and enjoy. But when it comes to recruiting, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have the music off, and you're literally just trying to look for an indication that this person is a maybe or a no. And you're just trying to get people into the short list as quick as you can. I think there's so many bad practices when it comes to reels. But when it comes to the cover letter, I've talked heavily about this because I feel like the cover letter is something that is so critical, because, as you said, it gives a lot of insight into who they are, their personality. But at the same time, like, I've had so many, I get probably 5 or 6 people a day applying at one of my businesses. And it's one of those things, if someone writes, hey, here's my reel, like, there's not really much indication to want to click through it. And the more insight you can give, especially in the first paragraph, if you can summarize everything that you're about to write in terms of, hey, this is Alan, I've got 20 years experience. I've been doing this, this, and this, and I primarily work in these tools and these studios, just finished up these other things. Like, just a quick summary, that's enough for me to say, great, okay, I'm interested, or move on to the next one. But having no cover letter, or being too focused on telling your life story or whatever it might be, again, you got to keep in mind that this person is going to be looking through a lot of applications, and they need to get a good idea really quickly about like who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. And I think the art of the cover letter is something that's starting to get lost in this digital age with all these online application formats. But, like you said, a paragraph is plenty of just like a quick introduction, that you're excited about the opportunity and, whatever, just just a few lines to kind of give a general summary of your experience. And I think it is always kind of nice to hear that someone's excited to be considered, and I guess one of the things that I've come across that is just advice of what not to do. I've had people write a different company name in their cover letter, like, I can't wait to work at NPC. And you're like, oh, you obviously are just duplicating, your cover letter and plopping it into every website that you find. And, that's really hard not to be completely dismissive of when you're kind of going through that. 'Cause you're like, oh, this person didn't even take the time to realize they're applying to Framestore.
Yep.
So that's something to be very mindful of. I think when you're applying for jobs, you need to kind of embrace it as your job, and you spend the time and you are very deliberate with the applications that you fill out, and that you are thoughtful and don't just start doing the whole copy paste and just duplicating the same thing for every place that you apply to, because each company is unique. Each company is looking for something unique. So you want to make sure that you're playing to that, and that you're, showing that you care and that you have that attention to detail, because those are all things that interpret into pretty much every role that could exist within a visual effects company, be it from a runner to an artist to marketing to data services. If you aren't thoughtful in your application process, that's a cue to a recruiter of like, this person might not actually be able to notice that, that one thing off in that frame, if they haven't been thoughtful enough to remember what company they're applying for. So it all kind of might not seem connected, but it is so connected, and everything like means something. And I tell that to a lot of our runners too, of like, when you're in that position, that if you take care and take pride in the work that is required of you, although it might be loading the dishwasher and, restocking bathrooms and the refrigerator and things like that. Like, if you do that with thought and precision, and you're mindful of it, and you realize that what you're doing is a contribution to the bigger picture, we're going to notice that, and we're going to see you as someone that might be able to take on more responsibility. And, if you are really great at setting up that client spread, and that you notice that, this client was in yesterday and they liked their tea this particular way, and you just proactively made that tea for them before they sat down, that's going to read in so many ways to lots of different levels of like, you're paying attention, you are proactive, you're thoughtful in the fact that you know what it means to make sure client services is done well, because that means that we're making our clients happy, not only with the content that we're creating, but with the experience they have when they come to us. Because, to be honest, a lot of companies can make similar images. So it's all a part of the package. It's like, why do you come to Framestore? Not only for the amazing work that we do, but for the amazing services that we provide. And that's something that we have to do to keep our clients coming back again. If they not only loved the images that we made, but loved the experience of being in our facility, that's, playing into the bigger picture. So it's important to take care and pride in everything that you do, from your application process to that entry-level job that you get first, and everywhere you go in your career.
I think it's, right on, because, it's the demonstration of the effort that you're willing to put in. And if you're willing to just kind of throw in whatever, like one of my favorites is when, and this has happened a couple of times, people have CC'd 20 or 30 companies, not even BCC'd, CC'd. Yeah. And I love that, because I almost want to reply all and say, like, is anyone else feeling the love? But yeah, you're right. Even when it comes to client service, that's one of those things that you're essentially having the responsibility of being the face of what their experience is when they come in. And a lot of places, as a client, you're going to come in wanting to feel appreciated and again, have that connection with the people that you're dealing with. So, if you're getting this kind of cold demeanor from certain people, then it's just like, all right, I don't feel welcome here. And it's got a huge impact on everything. So, I've got some friends who did start out in client service, and they ended up getting a job in compositing, which was ultimately their goal. And you've all got to put in the hard yards. You got to be in the trenches and put in your time. And it's not always glamorous in the beginning, but we all have to do it. And you can't just jump into your dream job necessarily right away. So you definitely got to put in the time. I was kind of curious too with, in terms of disciplines, are there any specific ones that are really high in demand? Like, let's say effects, lighting, compositing. Like,
sure.
In your experience, like, what do you think are the ones that are the go-tos that you definitely have a huge demand for?
Houdini. Houdini
Hmm.
effects artists is probably one of the biggest ones. And that's across the board in all of our studios between LA, New York, Chicago, Montreal, London. I think we're all always looking for more people that are well versed in Houdini and in effects. I'd say even like more abstract effects is something that we've been having come up a lot more. So more like
Some more
design,
motion
like
graphics. Okay.
yeah. So like effects design. So you're still using Houdini, but you're not just doing your typical kind of
Explosions and
destruction.
yeah.
Yeah. So that you're thinking of like more uh, a visceral type of abstract effects work, particles and
Hmm.
that kind of work. That's happened in a lot of the projects that we've had lately, and has been a challenge because you might bring in someone that has a really strong technical understanding of Houdini and effects and really great at the destruction work or like fluid simulations. But when you kind of ask them to like help design this
Yeah.
abstract idea, that's something that's a totally different ball game, if you will.
Hmm.
So I'd say that's probably number one. I think we come across compositors is always something that I think we're looking for, really strong compositors in Nuke. Um, then from there, I mean, we're always looking for all of them, but I'd say if I had to narrow it down, I'd say effects Houdini is number one. That is definitely number one. And now that we've kind of to do a lot more of the real-time work, I mean, people with a games background, but still have the eye for more high-end visual effects and taking it to that standard is something that we're looking for as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, but those are the primary, that's the biggest one, I would say. But it's
Sure.
for us, it's always kind of looking for people that have a strong understanding of photorealistic imagery in CG and strong compositors, you know, that are kind of comfortable with that, I guess, are this blend of both technical and artistic so that they feel comfortable kind of setting looks for shots, but also can kind of do a bit of scripting to
Hmm.
automate some tasks that will help us just deliver a shot faster. You know, that kind of tapping into that again, that's something that we're always kind of interested in finding more of.
Cool. Well, that's really great. And can you talk a little bit about your graduate and runner recruitment program as well?
Sure. So we've got two programs at Framestore, one being our internship program and one being our runner program. So the way that it's set up in the US, I can highlight a bit. For the US, we have our internship program, which is held 3 times throughout the year. So they're 3-month-long programs. The internships are open to all levels. So it's not exclusive to people that are currently in school. We've had people that were in school, people that had just graduated, and also people that have already been working professionally, but perhaps at smaller studios and see the opportunity and decide to apply. So it's pretty much open to anyone that's willing to embrace the idea of being an intern. It is a paid internship, so it's paid at $16 an hour, and that's across all 3 sites that we have in the US. It's an immersive internship in the sense that we bring in the candidates and they're working on the projects that we are currently producing in that office at that time. There'll obviously be some training components as far as making sure they have their head around using a Linux-based system, since we're all Linux-based at Framestore, getting them some training in a large-scale production pipeline, as well as just getting them kind of adjusted to the idea of being in a production setting where you're getting feedback and kind of that whole process of the dailies with your team and getting client feedback and how you adjust your shots and using programs like Shotgun, as oftentimes people don't have exposure to that in school.
Yeah.
So it allows you to actually work on the projects that we're on. So it's not as much just setting an intern group aside where they just do their own project. There might be a little bit of time for you to explore some R&D type tasks that if there's not a project that can use you at that time. So there's a bit of that kind of freedom and ability to train. But what we try to do is bring in candidates that have a set of skills that we know that they're pretty confident in, but then also give them opportunities to develop in new areas. So say someone comes in that's interested in modeling, but they'd really like to get into texturing, like they've been modeling, want to do some texturing, we'd probably spend some time getting them into Mari and training them on how to use that program. I mean, they'll have access to every program that we have available. So it is an amazing opportunity to kind of be able to play and learn, and you'll be surrounded by some of the most talented people in the industry. So it's a really incredible opportunity. So that's the internship program. There's the idea behind it as well, I guess I should say, is that we don't try to put as much pressure on our interns as we would if you came in as a freelancer. So this is often something I kind of get into with current graduates or like recent graduates, where they're kind of turned off by the idea of doing an internship. But we put a lot more pressure on our freelancers. So if you come in as a junior freelancer, which to be completely honest, we don't bring on very many junior freelancers. We usually just pull from our interns or former interns. There are going to be expectations that are put upon you to deliver at a certain quality level and in a certain amount of time. When you kind of are brought in at that freelance intern, we kind of treat it more as a learning setup. So you're not going to have the same, stressors of like, I've got to get this shot done in order for this job to be completed. We'll obviously give you opportunities to try to do that shot, but we'll always have a bit of a backup plan and always have like a support system in place so that you're not feeling that same burden or pressure to finish in time, because the schedules can be quite complicated. So it's a really great way to get full exposure to what it's like to work at Framestore, get to work on some amazing shots, and also not have to have the same stress put upon you as you would if you're a freelancer. And you've got 3 solid months that you're with us, whereas like freelance, we might bring you in for 2 to 3 weeks. And if you don't perform well in that 3-week period, then we might not bring you back for a while because we just say, oh, they're not quite ready. So it's a really amazing opportunity, and something I think that a lot of young artists and young talent see and are like, oh, but I think I can do more than what an internship requires. But I think ours is a little bit different. And it really is a great way to get your foot in the door and get to know people. Then the runner program is kind of for people that might not quite be ready for the internship. So they might need a little bit more time on their reel. We do try to find people that are interested in visual effects to be a part of our runner program. So that's going to be primarily focused on the client service side of things and like facilities needs. So it's a lot of the, ordering lunches, cleaning up the facility, checking on clients, getting coffees, and then just general kind of day-to-day admin tasks, light answering of phones, that kind of stuff. But the idea behind the runner program is that if you have an interest in staying into this industry, that you are able to use our facility off hours. So when you're not being expected to do the job of a runner, the idea is that you could sit down at a computer either on the weekends or early in the morning or in the evening when you're not on the clock, basically, and develop some of your work and use the programs and use the facility. And you would kind of be able to meet the team, and our team is all very into the idea of mentoring and are more than give feedback as you kind of progress through some shots and do work. And then the idea is that from the runner program, you would apply for an internship. And as you kind of join the runner team and we get to know what your interests are at Framestore, we'll obviously try to focus you into some areas where, like, say, if you're interested in production, we'll try to give you some production assisting tasks, and give you a little bit more focus so you can kind of learn more about that department and hopefully move into that, next position after you've been through the runner program. So that goes for about 3 months as well. We do tend to extend people in that runner program for a bit longer if they don't quite have the skills that are needed to go into the internship. I should specify that our internship program is very competitive. We keep it very small. So we only take, in LA and New York, I think we take 3 in CG. 2 in compositing and up to 2 in design and up to 2 in VR. Chicago, they take even less just because they're smaller, but we do try to keep it so that the candidates that do come in are getting that one-on-one attention and mentorship from the team and from the department that they're in, as opposed to, bringing 10 interns at once where, at that point, it's hard for us to be able to give them the support that they deserve and the mentorship that they're looking for. And then they do end up just kind of working on their own project. So it is a very competitive position just because of how few candidates we take each term. Mm-hmm. So that being said, sometimes the runner role is kind of the best way to get started. If you were not selected for the internship, going into that runner position is a great way to still get in at the company, get to know everybody. I mean, we have people that have been runners that are now running the company. The president of integrated advertising for the US started out as a receptionist runner. Tim Weber started out as a runner, and he won an Oscar for Gravity. So it's just a really great way to get started. There's no shame in taking the runner position and working your way up, because you do get full exposure to what we're doing and kind of from beginning to end, since you're dealing with client services, so you can kind of see the progression. And it's just a matter of talking to people, and networking even within your own company, of getting to know the compositors if that's what you're looking to do, and getting their feedback on the shots that you've done and asking them for suggestions on how you can improve, or, any kind of feedback that they're able to give. And, everyone is busy, but I think everyone values the idea of mentoring the next generation and wants to see everyone have as much knowledge as possible, because I think the more everyone knows, the better we are as a whole. It's always going to be a collaborative effort, and I think we really try to encourage that. So they're both really amazing programs for like entry level positions at the company. And I think Framestores had such an amazing reputation through the years of promoting from within. So, if it's your ultimate dream to work at a company like Framestore, I think going for those other roles is a great way to get started, because you can at least get in there and get to know everybody and then show them what you're capable of before saying, okay, I'm ready to be your next, lead compositor. Kind of start from the ground up. It's really a great way to go about it.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, traditionally, and especially in the UK, like a runner is pretty much what everyone does. They put in their time, especially if you want to be a producer one day, then typically going to start as a runner, do a year or two, and then slowly work into maybe tape ops or somewhere like that, eventually a coordinator, and continue working up there. So, I mean, again, it's all about putting in the time. And I think that those positions are really great, because at least you're more observing. You're getting a chance to be around everything and see how it all works before you kind of dive into one specific role. So yeah, I think that's really awesome. And I had one or two more questions. One I figured just quickly we'd touch on would be just the structure. Let's say that someone came in as an intern doing the graduate program, or however it might be. What would be the structure? You would usually have artists, then leads, who speak to soups, who speak to a producer, right? What would be the typical structure for artists, especially at Framestore?
Yeah, and in integrated advertising, typically the way we have our team set up is that every project will have a creative director who's going to be kind of the top of the internal kind of creative vision of that project. So they'll be kind of the ultimate final say. Then below that, you will have supervisors. There's always going to be someone that goes on set and kind of dealing with that visual effects supervision role, but also kind of depending on the size of the project, I guess, but usually there are supervisors as well. We do have department supervisors. So we have an animation supervisor, we've got a texturing supervisor, we've got a rigging supervisor. So the idea is that they're kind of across all projects that we have, because we just honestly don't have enough staff to have a supervisor for each department on every single project. It's going to be one person that's kind of looking after how that work is being delivered in that department and kind of having their eyes on all the different shows that we have going on at once. And then there are leads. So we usually have a CG lead and then a 2D lead on a project. So kind of the 2D lead is going to be the one looking after the compositing aspects, and then CG is obviously going to look after all of the CG department. So there isn't necessarily always going to be within commercials, there isn't necessarily always going to be an animation lead, a lighting lead, and a texture lead in one show. You're going to have one person kind of fulfilling that task across the CG section of that project. And that's kind of, everyone would kind of below that would report up to the CG lead. So interns, when they come in, what we try to do is kind of assign them to a mentor, but we try to rotate them around to different mentors so they get a bit of exposure to how different people work. So they wouldn't necessarily be attached to one CG lead the whole time. They would probably work with like a senior artist, and depending on what area they're interested in. But if they're a lighter, we would maybe try to move them between a couple different senior lighters or CG leads, just so that they can get a sense for how different people work, and also just get to know more people and get feedback from different perspectives. In feature films, obviously the structure is a bit more rigid, I suppose I could say, where you would kind of have a team, juniors would report into sequence leads, and then there's going to be a larger, lead over top of that, and you're going to have supervisors in the various departments for a particular show. But within advertising and the projects that we have, just because of the sheer amount that we have coming through and the size that we kind of have to work with, it's a bit kind of a simplified structure, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Cool. No, that's awesome. And one question I had was, is there any big red flags that you commonly see when people are applying for jobs? Either it is that they're not clear about the work that they're doing, or whether it's in the interview, just kind of being a little bit too arrogant or whatever it might be. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what are some of the common ones that people need to be a bit more careful about when they are applying?
I think it's important to remember that we are in a digital age, and your information is very easily accessible. Mm-hmm. So having your online presence and being knowledgeable of what your online presence,
shots and everything on Facebook.
So it's that kind of thing. And people do Google the candidates. I mean, we do look into them, and if some weird stuff comes up about you, that might be an immediate red flag. So be mindful of your online presence, be that from having nasty comments that you make on a YouTube video, or making weird YouTube videos, or having inappropriate photos on your Facebook page. I would encourage people to be as professional in their online life as they are if they were to walk through the front door of a job interview, as much as possible. I think other red flags for us, I did kind of highlight, applying to a million positions. If you are a graduate that, just graduated this spring, I would not encourage you to apply for the senior level position because obviously you're not quite ready for that. So that's usually something that's an automatic no. I think it's important to be mindful of time. So if you are called in for an interview, you don't want to show up too early, and you also don't want to be late, of course. So don't show up 45 minutes before your interview time, because you have to realize that the people that you're going to speak with have a pretty busy day. And so if you're just sitting there waiting for them for 45 minutes, it adds this unnecessary pressure on them.
Yeah,
so
I just want to jump in on that and say, you're completely right. That's one thing that a lot of people think, that if I show up early, it's going to show that I'm keen or whatever. And I think pressure is the exact word, because it's so disruptive when typically you come in, you're doing your thing. Most interviews are going to be 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning. So you've got time to do the stuff that you need to do. And when you suddenly have people waiting in the lobby, it completely throws everything out of whack. And it can, I think, make people, when they come into an interview, already kind of upset with you, just because you've done it with the best interest in mind. But it can definitely put a bit of pressure and annoyance on the people who've got to meet up with you. So showing up at the right time, and go get some Starbucks if you're a bit early.
Exactly. I've said that to a few people before. Just there's coffee shops around the corner. Just go grab a coffee and sit in your car. I don't care. But either way. And then another thing I think that you kind of touched on is keeping your ego in check. I think that can be a very, especially at the beginning of your career, it can be a very big turnoff for companies to interview a candidate that's coming in and being kind of strong arming almost for the position. I think having a bit of humility and kind of knowing where you're at in your career and recognizing that. I mean, you obviously want to be confident and be able to speak clearly about the work that you've done and kind of the career path that you have kind of hope that you have planned for yourself. Those kinds of things, coming prepared is absolutely amazing, and kind of having a 5-year plan or even a vague idea of what a 5-year plan could be, because it is kind of one of those generic interview questions, but it does just show that you have consideration into what you want to do with your life and where you see yourself going, and being realistic about it. So, if you come in as, someone that just graduated or is still in school and say in 5 years, I want to be a creative
CEO.
director. Yeah, exactly. You're just like, well, sure. But these things take time. And I think being, I guess, acknowledging how much you don't know, is one of the things that I think a lot of young people in this industry struggle with, because they may have a little bit of experience and they think they know everything, but you do have to realize there's so much that you don't know. So when you come in with like 3 years of experience saying, I could do the supervisor's job better than him, and it's like, well, you actually don't really know everything that they're going through and how much they have to think through. And sure, you might have some ideas for what could be done to improve the process and make the project run smoother, but there is a lot that you have no ideas going on in the background, and it's never as black and white. Then everyone would be doing it. Everyone would be leading projects if it was that simple. So I think, kind of having that understanding of where you are in the industry and kind of in your own career. And I think one of the biggest detriments to anybody is when they start just comparing themselves to other people. And I think that's applicable to all parts of life. You just really need to look at yourself and like what you have accomplished. And you bring that to the table when you go into interviews, or if you're going into your performance review and, your next year's salary negotiation. You don't want it to be about like, I saw Bob doing this and I could do this better than Bob. And I know Bob makes $10 more an hour than me. And it's like, well, I don't care what Bob is doing. Like, we're talking about you. So tell me what you've done and where you're at in your career, and, what examples you have of why you deserve this job or why you deserve this promotion, based off of accomplishments that you've made, and not, what you see someone else doing. And I think you'll find you'll just be happier as a person, and you'll also be more successful because you will just be focused on yourself and your own accomplishments and just doing your best work. And how you communicate that with potential employers or your current employer, I think will just make you kind of be able to continue to grow within your career exponentially.
No, I think it's really great. And you touched on a lot of really good points there. Like, one being to be able to point out like what you're good at and what, your strengths and weaknesses are, really. Because I think that a lot of people are afraid to ever acknowledge what they might be good at, because they think that that is going to be a weakness. And, a lot of times when you're staffing people, like, you want to know what they're probably not as proficient in, because it helps you better avoid those things. Like, okay, well, if you're not good at dynamics, you're more good at fluids, then let's go and put you into that role. Or if you don't like lighting, then that's fine. We don't need to give you any lighting work. But if you say I'm the best at everything, then it's very hard to know like really how to position or staff someone.
Yeah, and it sets unrealistic expectations as well, and then you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because we'll bring you in and then you're not able to perform in that particular area. And then, you get let go, or, you're not brought in for the next project if you're freelance. I think honesty and just being realistic is absolutely always appreciated, especially from the crewing perspective. Because if you come in telling me you're an amazing lighter, then I put you forward to our team and I'm like, this guy's an amazing lighter, we're going to hire him. And then you come into the show and then you're not able to do it. Then I have to figure out someone to replace you, putting more strain on the team that's there to pick up your work. So they're doing longer hours than they initially anticipated. Then everyone's kind of frustrated with me for being like, why did you say this guy was a good lighter? He doesn't do that at all. So it's like, you gotta be honest, and it will come out eventually. I think one of the things I like to see on Reels is an actual kind of just at the bottom of the shot, kind of listing what you do or what you did in that scene. So say you did the modeling and the texturing on this particular shot. you can always embellish the truth, but eventually it will come out, that if you're not really a strong texture artist and we give you texturing tasks, we'll find out once you're in, and it'll just make us more frustrated with you if you say that you did the texturing on that shot when actually you didn't, or maybe you did like, a day of it when it's someone else actually set everything up and you just did some final touches. It's a small industry. It's big, but it's small. So it's easy to find out if you're fibbing about the work that you did, because we could probably find out the person that did do it. And, I think there's a lot to be said for that, because I've seen a few examples and heard of people that have used other people's shots on their reels, and it's just only going to hurt yourself.
Or their entire reels, which I've actually had my own reel sent to me a few times. So yeah,
Exactly.
but that's a good point too, is listing what you've done as well, just because you never know, it might be completely innocent, but if you just put out a shot and you're not very descriptive about what you actually contributed to, then for all you know, the person who worked on that shot might be walking by and be like, oh, they said they did that. Well, I actually did all that, so they're lying or whatever. And it mightn't be that you're lying. It's just because you're not clarifying, there can sometimes be a miscommunication, and that means that it might cost you the job and also be positioning you as stealing people's work when you're not. It's just you did something in the background that they weren't aware of or whatever, So
exactly.
Again, the more clear you are, the better.
Yeah, breakdowns are amazing. If you can get a breakdown put together, you should, or just even a PDF that explains in more detail what you did on each shot. If not just something at the bottom, lower thirds that says I was responsible for modeling this robot and that kind of thing. Always really helpful for when we're initially going through kind of reels and that first pass that happens. Anything like that's really helpful for the recruiter to have access to.
Yeah, this has been so cool. I could ask you 100 more questions, but again, you've given so much great advice. So this has been awesome. Is there any additional resources or things like that you'd recommend for people to maybe get a bit more insight, or places to go online to find out more about Framestore?
Well, for Framestore, you should definitely connect with us on LinkedIn, go to our Facebook page, visit our website, because that's actually going to have the absolute full breadth of the work that we're doing and all of the jobs that we currently have open. So those are going to be your absolute best resources. And generally speaking, just kind of following that same approach with any company that candidates are interested in working for. The social networks are actually quite helpful for that. And there's a lot of stuff that we post on our LinkedIn that might be about networking events that we're hosting that you might not find out about otherwise. So it's really important to kind of keep your eye on the companies that you're interested in working with, and following them on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of those types of formats, platforms, I guess I should say. Beyond that, those are probably the main ones. And just getting your work out there and, network.
Absolutely. No, this has been so great. Again, thanks for taking the time to chat and to share all these insights. It's been really amazing.
It's my pleasure and privilege. Thank you for having me.
All right, I want to thank Kathleen for taking the time to chat. Again, there's so many great insights shared in this episode, and I will be back for episode 147, which is part 2 of an interview I did a while back with Bobby Chu of Schoolism. And we get into a lot of really great insights throughout this episode. So that is coming up. And then I've got some other really killer episodes coming up after that as well. So as I mentioned, if you want to get this free training, or even past June 24, if you want to sign up to get some additional free training, go to alanmckay.com/plasma and you can sign up there for free. And that being said, I'll be back next episode with Bobby Chu. Until then, rock on.